Russia tactics is much more centralized and with maybe a limited budget. But China has quite a limited budget on this kind of information warfare or psychological warfare.
Official Russian media are very cautious with respect to so-called Taiwan question. They're pretty cautious here. And typically they refrain from expressing opinions or interpretations.
As the war in Ukraine drags on, Putin is definitely going to seek further validation from China, going to seek more support for his actions in Ukraine. And I can only imagine that antagonism against Taiwan is going to ramp up.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center, an NGO Euro-Atlantic course, and I'm your host, Myroslava Yaremkiv. China's information campaign against Taiwan is a major challenge for both its government and civil society today. A report from Stockholm University's Varieties of Democracy project, published in March 2023, highlighted Taiwan's continuous struggle as one of the world's top targets for external disinformation over the past decade. The primary source of this disinformation is, of course, the People's Republic of China. In today's episode, we're going to discuss the similarities between Russian and Chinese propaganda tactics used to justify aggression towards sovereign countries. We'll also explore how joining efforts in counter authoritarian propaganda will provide greater benefits in protecting the information integrity of Ukraine and Taiwan. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching this video and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our videos in the future. It is worth noting that Beijing is refining its skill in spreading manipulative information to shape sentiments favorable to the policy of the Communist Party of China regarding the rebellious island. Analysts suggest that while China's attempts to spread disinformation during the previous elections in 2020 were rather clumsy and easily detectable, especially through IP addresses, pro-China messages now have become more aligned with the local agenda. Taiwanese legislator, associate professor at National Taipei University and board member of Doublethink lab, Puma Shen, will talk more about Taiwan's experience in countering Chinese propaganda.
Previously, we all thought that China learned all these tactics from Russia, and which was true at the very beginning. But I have to say that China sometimes utilizes different tactics, comparing to Russia. So Russia tactics is much more centralized and with maybe a limited budget. But China has quite a limited budget on this kind of information warfare or psychological warfare. And there are so many departments there in China that are capable of spreading disinformation. So just to list some of them, first, the military, the PLA, the Chinese Liberation Army, they actually have the team that spread this information all over the world. And let me just give you a number from Google. From last year, Google tried to remove all these Chinese state-operated channels on YouTube. From January to September, they removed 58,000 of them. So daily, they removed 200 channels from China. So it's not 200 videos, it's 200 channels from China. That's according to YouTube reports. So, that's the capability from maybe the PLA, and that's something needs to be aware of. Second is that there are so many hackers that really, actually belongs to the, and actually work for the PLA and the Ministry of State Security. So right now, the rough number is that there are 100,000 hackers that actually work within the Chinese government, but actually with very low salary. So that's their capability to spread this information, to also using hacker activities to gather some leaked documents and make sure that these documents could be fabricated, manipulated when they want to spread any disinformation locally or even to the international community. So to really dig into what the army, the PLA, and the Ministry of State Security could be quite crucial when you want to counter the Chinese disinformation. But third, they also have the United Front work that is capable of spread disinformation not online, but offline within our society through the gangsters, through the religious group. They have such a capability of doing this and maybe much better than doing it just online, because they have been developing this kind of tactics since I would say maybe 1970s and 1980s. So that's another issue that we need to face, is the united front work system. And especially with this united front work system, they're good at approaching the gangster all over the world. And at the very beginning, gangster only work as a hub for doing some money laundering and maybe try to reach some maybe religious group locally. But it's just united front work network. It was not a big deal at the very beginning. But right now, it has been a little bit different. So last year, when we tried to spot some disinformation spread from China, actually on Reddit, I mean, the social media is a little bit like a social media platform also there in the US. And then we found out that the mobile signal that tried to spread all this disinformation is actually based here in Taipei, which is very strange because all these like videos and posts, they're all like super pro-China. I mean, aligned with Chinese propaganda. And we just found out that actually there are like the gangster here that has been approached by China. They purchased like 500, SIM card, and try to use their computer to emulate the Android system and then spread Chinese propaganda all over the world. So they're just not, for all these gangsters, they're not just, working on money laundering or Bitcoin or any like maybe some gray area. They're capable right now to use the evaluation system developed by China and actually work as the cyber army.
Mentis Analytics is an AI-driven real-time information field monitoring platform. It collects information from media, social networks, and other sources, analyzes it, and provides insights into who communicates what and how. They help governments, organizations, and individuals to detect, defend, and counteract against information warfare using AI technologies. Researchers recently examined the Russian narrative of alleged American biolabs in Ukraine, analyzed about 100,000 elements of content in Telegram starting from February 2022, and applied artificial intelligence to select 10 main narratives that revolved around this campaign. Co-founder and expertise lead at Mentis Analytics, Anton Tarasyuk, will tell you more.
Here is the top 10 narratives, which is like basically data-based assessment of what Russia says about Taiwan. And what you can notice here, and I would just go to the conclusion here. Official Russian media are very cautious with respect to so-called Taiwan question. They're like pretty cautious here. And typically, they refrain from expressing opinions or interpretations. Like some pundits and some commentators, as Levy hinted, they can do it. But like if we take it like in general, they're pretty cautious. But there are several buts. There is no Taiwan's position present, and this correlates with what Levy said, that they try to frame it as like two superpowers being in a dispute, and all narratives which can be found like on this big scale, if we not concentrate on some individual pundits, but if you look on the like general scale, are pushed via references to Chinese officials. So basically, Xi said something, Xingat told something. So basically, in general, Russian propaganda refrains from stating what they think about it. They just present the Chinese position, and that's it. No Taiwan position, no interpretations. So basically, they comply to what China says, but like trying to market as a kind of objective framing. And it also comprises Ukraine comparison. So basically, mostly when they refer to Ukraine, they refer to Xi Jinping's words and directed against NATO or US. So basically, what we did, we cleared this discursive focus. So basically, we did not understand how the Taiwan question is presented in Russian media. But these conclusions are preliminary, and what is next? I guess we can, like, with respect to understanding China-Russia cooperation and coordinating media activities, of course, the research needs to be conducted on more sources. The database assessment of China's discourse on on these matters, like for example on Ukraine and on Taiwan, and probably some kind of comparison on it should be conducted. And basically, we understand that the coordination is going on, but to what extent data can provide the answer. Right now, we have pretty good preliminary answers, but I think there is a lot to be done. And the importance of it is that if we have data-based understanding of what is going on, we can be more effective and more efficient in countering and to engaging with this stuff, and also in containing the disinformation that is being pushed, and understanding the sources, the techniques, what works and what not.
Doublethink Lab recently conducted a study on the coverage of the elections in Taiwan on Russian Telegram channel. The typical narrative they found depicted a clash between the United States and China. The USA was portrayed as a provocateur and an aggressive country that incites wars worldwide, with the victory of one Taiwanese party being framed as a military triumph for the USA. Another narrative questioned the democratic nature of the elections in Taiwan. Experts also observed that Russia is willingly aligning itself with the Chinese Communist Party and its regime, and Ukraine is consistently compared to Taiwan, with emphasis placed on the US role in provoking conflicts in both regions. Levi Bochantin, social engagement researcher at Doublethink Lab, will elaborate more on this.
Why look at Russian Telegram at all to begin with? So this actually started as an ongoing project we're doing with Mantis Analytics, with their cooperation and help on how Taiwanese sovereignty is generally framed in the Russian language space. They provided an amazing database that they used for one of their reports that they gave us. And I started going through that database and identifying some accounts of interest. And as the Taiwanese elections kind of rolled on in mid-January, I decided to see, hey, what are these accounts saying? What kind of messages are they spreading? And I noticed some very interesting things among several of the high-profile accounts. So I wanted to kind of generally share my observations about what's going on the Russian Telegram space regarding Taiwan and the elections. So as I have here, there's not a whole lot of focus given to Chinese and English social media commentary on Taiwan, or there is a lot of focus given on Chinese and English social media commentary on Taiwan, but not so much on the Russian space. And that's important because pro-Kremlin Russian influencers and users have not stayed silent. They have definitely been spreading messages, and it's important to see what kind of propaganda narratives are circling in Russian social media space regarding Taiwan. Essentially, the framing of Taiwanese political parties and elections have definitely fueled a deeper narrative that is questioning Taiwan's sovereignty and democracy. As you saw, it's not outright saying that Taiwan has no sovereignty or no democracy, but it's kind of playing on these key themes to allude to that, to suppose that. Also, Taiwan is framed as a pawn between two superpowers. So in the event that Taiwan's framed as having two parties that are either American or Chinese, well, we're not talking about whether we have two or three Taiwanese parties. We're talking about they're Americans and Chinese. So it's kind of stripping Taiwanese of their own political sovereignty there. Also, as I mentioned a few times, Ukraine is definitely a point of comparison. In this case, the users conflate the U.S.'s supposed role in starting the war in Ukraine with potentially starting a war in Taiwan Strait. So U.S. is, made to be the aggressor, the punching bag here. And personally, I think as the war in Ukraine drags on, Putin is definitely going to seek further validation from China, going to seek more support for his actions in Ukraine. And I can only imagine that antagonism against Taiwan is going to ramp up in the Russian Telegram space. Definitely, it's something I think we need to keep more of an eye on in the coming years.
You've been watching a special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini!